good morning to James Dahl, Master at Wellington College. Delighted to have you on board and connected seamlessly as ever. Thank you for joining me. James, Wellington has always had a very strong reputation for innovation. How does an education with you best arm adults, young adults, for the future?
Oh gosh, good question. We have, and the governors and I are really keen that moving forward we continue with this purpose of pioneering education and innovating, I suppose, to serve and help shape a better world. In terms of the actual education here, I think it's just that combination of three things. You hear a lot these days of the knowledge that's required for young people to be able to access the world of tomorrow, but those skills, a lot of people call them soft skills. I hate that phrase. I've always called them human skills. Of collaboration, teamwork, empathy, compassion, all of those aspects of what makes a successful human being. And I suppose that bleeds into character for the world of tomorrow. We think of character building at Wellington in four different areas: building sort of intellectual character, moral character, civic character, and performance character as well. So I think it's that triangle of knowledge, skills, and character that is going to prepare our young people for the world of tomorrow. And we hope that we bleed that into everything we do, from the way in which we teach and learn inside the classroom to the way in which we frame our service activities and our co-curricula through to we treat each other in our boarding houses and around the school. So that magic triangle, Antonia, I would say.
And do you think, I'm not going to mention the C word because we're all thoroughly over it, but do you think that the online learning of the previous couple of years has got an added benefit to educating pupils going forward? And are there lessons learned?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I would say we were very blessed at Wellington. We're quite technologically embedded here, so all of our pupils use Microsoft Surfaces as part of their everyday learning. And so when the first lockdown arrived, we just switched on Microsoft Teams and went from teaching in person to teaching online overnight, which was wonderful to see. I think what's happened is that has upskilled teachers and pupils to be able to be more flexible and adopt a more hybrid, blended approach to learning. But interestingly enough, when our boys and girls, and I'm sure this was the case, all schools came back after lockdown 1 and then again after lockdown 2, they're absolutely desperate for face-to-face human interaction, both with each other and with teachers. Schools are wonderful communities that give people to each other as well as giving learning opportunities. So there's lots that we will take. We've all become better at teaching online and blending what we do online. But I think that those who are envisaging the end of schools within the next decade, I think are wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. And do you think the demographic at Wellington sort of reflects or gives a snapshot of the world going forward that your pupils will live and work in?
Great question. I would say yes and no. Where it's no, we're trying to address things. So yes, in the sense that we, because we're a boarding school and because we offer the IB diploma in the sixth form as well as A levels, have pupils at Wellington from almost 40 different countries around the world. And actually a number of our pupils who live in the UK will have, French mum, American dad. And so that international, globally minded, outward facing mix, I think, does reflect the world of today and tomorrow. And actually I hope will help us solve some of the global geopolitical issues that we have currently, where countries seem to be becoming more siloed and bridges seem to be being knocked down rather than built up. Certainly not our way. I think where we're working desperately hard to, I suppose, reconnect with our original foundation is in that widening access and accessibility piece. So we have an ambitious program to grow our socially transformative bursary scheme, which is called the Prince Albert Foundation. We have 20 pupils at the college at the moment on that scheme. We hope to have 40 pupils on that bursary scholarship program by 2025. And we also have 100 plus pupils whose parents have some sort of means tested bursary in order to access Wellington. And we hope that by pursuing both those socially transformative bursaries and investing more and more of our commercial revenue in offering means tested bursaries for families who can afford some of the fees but not all, that we will end up building a more reflective demographic of both the world as it is in the UK, but the world as it is on a global stage moving forward. Really important that all schools do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And dare I say it, on the back of that, with the sort of year-on-year rise in independent school fees, you know, is this becoming something realistic that you know, dare I say it, the average, in inverted commas, family is going to be able to afford? And I guess what can we do to, beyond the bursaries which you've discussed, is it going to be something that's actually accessible?
Yeah, really interesting. I remember having sitting next to Robert Skidelsky, Lord Skidelsky, the economist, and when I taught at Brighton College, and he was one of the governors at the time, and he predicted, he said, what will happen in the independent sector is you will end up with having a whole series of different strata of fees and accessibility, and thus it has proved. You know, we at Wellington are amongst one of the most expensive schools in the UK. We're not quite in the Swiss boarding schools market at the moment, but there are, I suppose, more accessible day options and weekly boarding options. So I suppose if you look at the sector as a whole, there are different entry points. But I think what schools like Wellington are doing is asking very serious questions of how we can broaden access to more. Because we would love it to be needs blind, but we certainly want it to be. We want no family to be put off looking at Wellington or applying to Wellington. So I think independent schools, private schools have never been accessible to the entire population because of the that they are fee charging. But what we all need to do is look at our charitable status more carefully, look at our histories, look at our foundations, raise more cash, primarily through commercial revenue or through fundraising, in order to get as close to needs blind as we possibly can. I'd love to be like Phillips Exeter in America with a $1 billion endowment, and you know, we could accept anyone who comes our way, and maybe a 100-year goal.
They've got a completely different outlook on the system, haven't they, in the US? I mean, it's, you know, from the minute you arrive to well beyond you leave, it is all about reinvesting in someone else's education as well, isn't it?
It is, Antonio, but I would say that I've noticed a shift on this side of the Atlantic too. That culture of giving, of philanthropy, of giving back, of widening access is becoming more and more part of the way in which we do things in this country, and I think that's only for the betterment of our sector and for the widening access agenda.
Absolutely. For those sort of just embarking on this journey, do you think there is such a thing as a typical Wellingtonian, both I guess at entry point when you're accepting a child into the school, but also as a Wellington leaver? Are there characteristics that you are particularly looking in a pupil?
Yeah, I would say if Ed Venables, my director of admissions, were here, he would say we're just looking for you know, bright children who love school and love throwing themselves into the rich tapestry of school life. I often think of Wellington as just being this huge buffet, everything you can eat on it, and we want young girls and boys to come here and try everything that's available on the buffet, and they'll end up preferring the cheese or the bread or the ham at some point, but it's that sort of mindset. It's if I may, I think having been at Wellington for 9 years now, this perception that sometimes you have to be either a grade 8 cellist at the age of 10 or an international hockey player at the age of 11 or just incredibly alpha to survive here is a false perception. If we had 1,100 sharp old alpha grade 8 cellists and county hockey players, it would be a very difficult school to run. So I think that's it. And then on exit, I think we're becoming broader, which is lovely. We're sending more and more to America. We are sending more and more to read STEM subjects in the UK. So when I joined Wellington in 2013, fewer than 20% of our graduates were going on to STEM subjects. We're now over 33, over a third of our leavers are going on into the world of STEM. So
and that across both genders. I mean, is that girls and boys? Yeah.
It is, and because we do the IB as well as A levels in the sixth form here, and half of our sixth form do the IB, and of course in the IB you have to do maths and you have to do science.
Yeah.
Across the sixth form, we have a higher proportion of girls studying maths and science than I would say is the average in the GSA, in the girls' school sector.
Yeah.
And really proud of that. Our head of science, technology and engineering is a woman. Our head of biology is a woman. And chemistry here at Wellington is a woman too. So lots of fantastic role models in the world of STEM for Wellingtonians to look up to.
Absolutely, really important actually, because I think the only downside occasionally to co-ed is that funny if the genders do that naturally tend to go for the sort of specific subjects, and as you say, I think the IB is a great umbrella to stop that happening, because they have to keep such a broad range of subjects for longer.
They do indeed, and we're on co-education, Antonia. I think as well as getting that broader gender split across the subjects is vital to boys and girls grow up learning that they can pursue anything they want in life, regardless of who they are or how they identify. I think, you know, some of our best dancers at Wellington at the moment are boys, and some of our leading cadets, the head of our combined cadet force at Wellington is a girl.
Fantastic.
Fantastic that young people grow up looking at these role models and understanding, do you know what, it doesn't matter who I am or how I identify, what my gender is. Gender stereotypes are broken down on a daily basis at Wellington, and I can achieve anything in life. Wonderful message to inculcate into the hearts and minds of young people before they go out into their adult lives.
Absolutely, what a springboard for life. And actually, on the subgender note, I mean, Wellington has got the most unbelievable reputation for your sport. You know, you've got international success across generations. Does girls' sport get as much spotlight as, for example, you know, the rugby, which I know is huge? And if so, I guess what if I was a parent looking now, are there crosses over again? Do the girls play cricket, for example?
Absolutely. So 100% they do. We've introduced in the last few years, I think, called Friday Night Lights. So we get some of the girls' sport to be on a Friday night, and we get a huge crowd. Hundreds of Wellingtonians go down to the hockey pitch, for example. We put barbecues on, street food stalls. We get music, and we really showcase the girls' sport. And that's been a very conscious decision. It's also been something that's been driven by our students as well. So first year as master in 2019, 2020, the boys and girls on the prefect body wanted to bring that sense of just a sports club at girls and boys, rather than the rugby takes centre stage on a Saturday afternoon. I think the achievements of our girls, it could be argued that actually this year the girls are outperforming the boys. We've qualified, our under 14 hockey teams qualified for the national finals, our under 16 and under 19 netball teams have qualified for the national finals. We've got international girls in triathlon, gymnastics, fencing, horse riding, and we've just appointed a head of girls sport development who is a professional female cricketer, Anto, to come and join the college to drive our girls' sport forward. And we're also investing in the facilities. So we're going to build and develop a whole suite of new tennis courts and netball courts. And we built and opened a couple of years ago a second sports hall, which has indoor facilities for netball, tennis and cricket. So we're across the staff, the facilities, the way in which our culture runs, we're really keen on that side of things.
Amazing. Is Anthony Selden's legacy of well-being still prolific at the college? And if so, how do you think that distinguishes you from other schools?
It is. I mean, well-being, if there are any pupils, and I think there might be some Wellingtonians on this call, you know, we focus and talk about wellness and looking after ourselves a huge amount. We continue to develop and adapt our taught wellbeing course. So you'll remember 15 years ago when Ian Morris, who is still our head of wellbeing here today, when he the initial course, there were those headlines that, you know, schools gone bonkers, Wellington introduced lessons, and of course now every school in the country has that sort of wellbeing wellness thread through. So Ian is still with us. He's still developing that course, adapting it year on year. In the last year, we've appointed a full-time role, a head of student emotional health and well-being, who is an ex-CAMS child psychologist. So she's come and joined the team to supplement our pastoral network of HMs and counsellors, and we in 2019-2020 we've had the Festival of Education for over a decade here at the college, but we are now building a festival of well-being and mental health, and we had the first one in person in 2019, and we've had to pivot online for the last couple of years, and we want to have that as a showcase for issues in and around contemporary well-being and mental health issues, particularly with the teenage mental health issues that were already coming down the track but that have been amplified by COVID.
Sure.
Our biggest project in this area is we continue to want to pioneer and innovate in this space. So the governors have given me permission to look at the creation of a holistic wellness centre at the college that brings together every facility that we have and every intervention, both proactive and reactive, in both physical and mental health. And I think this next stage of the wellbeing journey across all schools needs to be to destigmatise, or to continue to destigmatise, mental health issues, and to make everyone realise that physical and mental health are two sides of that same wellness coin, and that there's a huge amount that you can be doing proactively to support your physical and mental health, but also that when something goes wrong and there's a reactive intervention that needs to happen in your physical or mental health, that's fine. And just go to see a doctor if you've broken your leg, you go to this wellness facility if you are struggling with anxiety or depression, or you're feeling your mood dip, and so we don't think any school in the UK has a facility like this. There are one or two in Australia, so we continue to be very passionate about the legacy that Anthony left for us, but we want to build it for the world of tomorrow, and not just continue to do what we've always done.
Yeah. And you're also, I mean, you're putting in the building blocks for the future, aren't you? I mean, there's so much about physical exercise helping your mental state. It's one of my real gripes about when the pupils go on to university and suddenly, team sports, unless you really actively seek them out, you take for granted the structure that's been around you at school, and suddenly you're actually in slight free fall, and you're wondering why you're not, you're feeling a bit flat, having not been outside for the whole day.
100%. And funnily enough, I love the fact that you just said that. But before coming on this call,
yeah.
I have Team of the Week in my office to celebrate an achievement. And today I had the senior basketball squad. Had girls in it as well as boys. And we were talking about the need for them to continue with their basketball and to join sports societies when they get to university, not just because it gives them a social outlet and a tribe to belong to, but because it's a really important way in which they keep their entire well-being, wellness in check. So I 100% agree.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wellington, as most people know, is a weekly boarding school. I'm really interested to hear about the culture behind that, as in, I mean, obviously if there are commitments on a Saturday, particularly sport, I guess those are all absolutely seen to before everyone goes home. But do you think it gives a good punctuation to the week going home at weekends? And is the school totally empty, or are there options to stay in?
Yeah, really, really good question, Antonia. I think there's sort of three types of boarding schools, and we're in. There's the rigidly weekly boarding schools, which is Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Go home and have Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night at home, and come back on a Monday morning. Then you have the full traditional boarding schools where you probably do 3 or 4 weeks in a row. Then you don't go home at weekends, and then you have an expat weekend, and then you have Wellington and schools like us where we run a full boarding model. So we still have Saturday morning lessons, we still have Saturday afternoon activities for everyone, we still have chapel on a Sunday evening, but we just don't put any restrictions around mum and dad coming on a Saturday, attending a pastoral talk in the morning, or going and playing with the parental golf roll-up society, and then going and watching their children play sport, and then having that 24 hours at home. So it does. We have 870 boarders, and I'd say probably 700 plus of them will get in a car with mum and dad on a Saturday afternoon and come back on a Sunday evening. So we have about 100 to 200 who stay behind on site. So and we look after them. And full focus, but we actually think that punctuation point, that ability for those who still want it to, our families are very much tend to be busy mums, busy dads, perhaps both working, who want to take advantage of everything that a full boarding school has to offer, but that family time on a weekly basis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
I think that's changed as well, hasn't it? The sort of the parenting, I mean, it's much more interactive anyway, generally. And I think that, you know, long gone are the days of being dropped off at boarding school on day one and being seen at half term. I think that's sort of, that's not really how people parent anymore.
no. And we hope, I hope that Wellington's culture is one of very much embracing parents, that we want the triangle of home, school and pupil to be as trusting and as open as possible. So we have parents in every day for arts events, for music events. We have every Saturday there's something for there's parental society. We have a parents choir. We different heads of department do different activities that come often on the calendar at different times. And if that relationship and that triangle is as strong as it possibly can be, then everyone benefits.
Yeah.
Days where it's we understand children best, leave them with us for the term and pick up little Johnny at the Christmas Carol service in December. Thank you very much.
No, absolutely. And on that sort of slightly on the same theme, on the dreaded, well, I say the dreaded, there's lots to be said for the social media side of things. How do you guys sort of juggle keeping everyone very much online, you know, with their friends and socially, and keeping up to speed on sort of IT, without it constantly being looking down rather than looking up at the world around them?
Yeah, it's tough. We try and blend an educational provision with restrictions. So when Wellingtonians arrive with us at the age of 13, the restriction is they only have their mobile phone for 1 hour a day in the evening. So they can still collect their phone, ring home, they can still check Instagram, but they have it permanently there in their pocket, buzzing, being And at the same time, we have an educational program that's run by our head of digital, and we have external providers that come in and do workshops. And then as they go up, when they get into years 10 and 11, we allow them to have their phone a little bit more during the day, but not when they're doing their private work in the evening. And then by the time sixth form, the default position is that they're allowed their device with them permanently. But all of that is with the caveat, if we're aware that for an individual child that something's going wrong, we might boundary it in a different way. So we're not going down the route of you will never have a mobile phone for your 5 years at Wellington. I think that would be that's not preparing children for the world of tomorrow.
No, exactly. You're sort of guiding them through the process, really.
That's the approach.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just on the sort of future, James, so you've been at Wellington 9 years. How do you see the school evolving over the next sort of 5 to 10 years? And do you see any sort of material changes in direction? I mean, I know you haven't got a crystal ball, but I'm asking you to give us an outline.
We do have a crystal ball. Yeah, I've been at Wellington for 9 years, which is wonderful. So I've lived through Anthony and Julian and was privileged enough to be offered this role in 2019, but I had a new chair of governors who started this year as well, and last year the governors and I decided that we would do a full sort of purpose, governorship and strategy review. And coming out of that is the fundamental desire for us to continue on the strategic direction that we've been on. This idea of being a pioneering educational establishment that has service and partnership and this sort of drive to help create a better world part of everything that we do. So in bigger picture terms, no change of direction. But there's a few bits and pieces that we're doing. So co-education, as you could probably tell, is I'm quite passionate about. So we're converting a boarding house into a girls' house, and we're going to build an 18th sixth form boarding house, which will be co-educational. And so by September 2025, we will have an equal number of boys and girls in the school. And interestingly enough, the governors have got ahead of us with that. The governing body of 16 is now 8 men and 8 women, and it's wonderful that we have that hardwired in. I think the other areas that we want to continue is asking really interesting questions about how we teach, what we teach, how we assess, and what we assess. So we've just appointed a new deputy head academic, and he's leading a full curriculum review on that side of things. We also want to create a facility here at Wellington, which we're currently calling the Bridge, which will be an educational research and innovation centre. So it'll be what we do at the EdFest for 2 days a year in June, July, but on a daily basis, and we'll have teachers here involved in action research projects, involved with partnerships with other schools and universities and educational departments to try and have insights into what brilliant teaching for the world of today and tomorrow looks like, and then to share that with the outside world. We've talked about the Wellness Centre. That's something that the governors are really keen, and I am too, that we continue to innovate and be in the vanguard of the educational conversation about what well-being provision should look like in schools moving forward. And I think that social responsibility, going back to our very foundation, we were founded to be a charitable school to educate the orphan sons of soldiers who lost their lives in war, and that desire to be a proactive and socially responsible partner to other schools in the local area and businesses, and to look outwards at all time is there. So we're going to grow the Prince Albert Foundation. As I said, we just set up a educational grants giving function that we're going to grow as well. In the past 2 years, we've given away £500,000 of our commercial revenue to partner state schools in order to support their COVID catch-up plans, and we want to grow that program as well. So we'll still be teaching pupils in a really exciting, holistic manner. Going back to where we began this conversation, the knowledge, skills and character that they need for the world of tomorrow, but we want to do that in an exciting, innovative way that's connected to the outside world, and that continues to push forward the bounds of what independent schools should be doing in 2022 and beyond.
Oh, busy times. It's a big role, isn't it, James? I mean, it's one of the largest roles in education, in my view. Do you have a sort of switch off button, or is it 24/7?
I think
I think that's my answer.
Yeah. When I switch off, I am able to switch completely off. But it is a remarkable school that is so much more than a school. We have a family of international schools. We have our 29 partner state schools. We have a huge commercial arm at this side, and we want to be more than just a school. And I think that the key thing to say there, Anthony, is that I'm not doing it all myself. I have a wonderful team around me, and that team has got us through COVID really well, I think, and it's that team that, under my vision and overall steering of the ship, that they will be the crew that ultimately delivers the journey that we want to go on. So yeah, I don't think there's a better job in education, Antonia. I've only ever taught in co-ed schools, and I've only ever wanted to teach in co-ed schools, and if I look around the world at the co-ed boarding schools, I can't think of a single other school that I'd want to serve or lead. So yeah, I just hope the governors will agree with me, and that it'll be a marriage made in heaven for quite some time.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure it will be. It sounds like a very exciting and truly innovative place as ever. Thank you so much, James. Really helpful to get a feel and a taste for what's going on. And we look forward to catching up in maybe 6 months or so, and having a development chat then. Absolutely,
Antonia. Thank you so much for reaching out. Great questions, and hope to see you in the flesh at some point soon.
Love that. I'll come and visit you. It sounds good. Thanks so much.